Tonight's story is about a young man whose life ended inside his own home. Not during a robbery, not during a fight, but during a visit from the police. According to reports, 2 police officers entered the house of a man named Daniel Kiskanov. Minutes later, a neighbor's camera recorded a chilling scream coming from inside the house. "Stop, you're killing me." When the ambulance finally arrived, Daniel was already dead. What really happened inside that house that night? And why do some people believe Daniel's death may be connected to something much bigger? Hi, Tracers, and welcome back to Trace Your Story. Before we begin today's story, I want to take a moment to introduce a special segment on this channel called Trace Your Story. In this segment, we share real experiences sent by viewers from different parts of the world. Some of these stories involve mystery, crime, or disturbing events that still leave many unanswered questions. If you have a story you would like to share, you can send it to us at virell@gmail.com. You can remain anonymous if you wish. Your identity will always be kept safe and respected. Tonight's story was sent to us by a friend who says they are still searching for justice after the death of someone close to them. The man at the center of this story was named Daniel Kiskanov. So tonight, let's trace the truth behind the memory. The person who sent us this story says Daniel was their friend. And according to them, the way Daniel was described after his death was deeply unfair. In the early reports, Daniel was made to look like a thief, a low-life drug addict. But the sender insists that image has nothing to do with the truth. Daniel was not the kind of person those reports tried to portray. In fact, he was known for something completely different. Daniel had won gold medals in several international physics competitions. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? Daniel was a brilliant mind, a man of science who spent his life solving complex equations. He was tall, but very skinny, not a man of violence at all. It's hard to see how someone like him could be framed as a common criminal just to cover up the truth. On February 26th, Daniel went out drinking with a few friends. He had recently sold some land, and according to the story, he wanted to celebrate. So that night, he and his friends went out together and drank quite a lot. At some point during the night, his friends wanted to continue drinking, but Daniel decided he wanted to go home. Before leaving, he asked one of his friends if he could borrow his bike to get back. The friend agreed, and Daniel rode home. At the time, nothing about that moment seemed unusual. Just a group of friends finishing a night out. But the next day, something unexpected happened. Around 6 p.m., someone called the police. And that phone call would change everything, because the caller claimed that Daniel had stolen the bike he rode home the night before. The call to the police raised an immediate question. The person who reported the bike as stolen was not the owner of the bike. According to the story we received, that detail alone should have changed how the situation was handled. Under normal police protocol in Bulgaria, officers are supposed to visit the person accused of taking the property. They ask whether the accusation is true. If there is a disagreement, both the accused and the owner are later called to present documents proving who owns the item. It's usually a simple process meant to resolve misunderstandings. But according to Daniel's friend, that protocol was never followed. Instead, 2 police officers went directly to Daniel's home. Both of them were described as large men. One of them reportedly stood over 2 meters tall. And according to people in the town, that same officer already had a reputation as a bully. What happened next would later become the most disturbing part of the entire story. Because according to the account we received, the officers entered Daniel's house. And then they started beating him. 2 massive officers, one over 2 meters tall, entering the home of a skinny, non-violent man over a borrowed bicycle. This doesn't feel like a standard police procedure. It feels like an ambush. At first, the officers claimed that Daniel had 6 knives on him, but that claim would later be challenged. One of the officers eventually admitted that Daniel did not actually have any knives. He also confirmed something else. Daniel was not aggressive, and he did not resist them. There were no witnesses inside the house. But according to the story we received, a neighbor's CCTV camera captured something important. Not video, but audio. Because from that recording, Daniel can reportedly be heard screaming the words, "Stop, you're killing me." What exactly happened inside Daniel's house that evening is still not fully known. There were no witnesses inside the room. But what we do know comes from the autopsy report that was later released. And according to that report, the level of violence Daniel suffered was extreme. The autopsy described multiple catastrophic injuries. Daniel had 17 broken ribs. Both of his lungs showed severe contusions and tears. His liver had ruptured. There was also hemorrhaging in the right kidney. The bones in his larynx were fractured. And his body showed bruises and abrasions across the head, face, arms, and legs. Look at those injuries. 17 broken ribs, a ruptured liver. This wasn't just a struggle during an arrest. This was a systematic beating. It makes you wonder, were they really there for a bicycle? Or were they sent to send a message? At some point after the beating, the officers appear to have realized the severity of Daniel's condition, because eventually they called emergency services. But by the time help was called, it may already have been too late. When the paramedics arrived, they saw the condition Daniel was in, and then they left. According to the story we received, paramedics cannot legally transport a body, which means that by the time the ambulance was called, Daniel was already dead. But what happened after Daniel's death raises even more questions, because instead of waiting for the proper authorities, the officers placed Daniel in their patrol car and drove him to the emergency room themselves.
Hey everyone, before we dive into the video, we want to announce that we're launching a brand new segment called Trace Your Story. For this segment, you can send us a real-life story you've experienced, from horror and cheating to crime or any other true story you have. Send us your story at Sean Virell, traceyourstory@gmail.com, using this format. Email subject, trace your story. Story title, your title here. Tell us your experience in as much detail as possible. Feel free to include any supporting photos or evidence if you have them. Optional contact, your WhatsApp number or another way we can reach you for more information. Don't worry, you can absolutely send your story anonymously if you prefer. We'll do our best to create a video and tell your experience. I'm really looking forward to your emails, and who knows, your story might be the very first one featured on Trace Your Story. Don't forget to submit your stories. I'll be waiting and can't wait to read them.
After Daniel was placed in the patrol car, the officers drove him to the emergency room themselves. But according to the story we received, they didn't immediately hand him over to medical staff. Instead, Daniel was left in the waiting area, while the officers began trying to straighten out their stories about what had happened. Only after that did they contact the prosecution office, as required by protocol when someone dies during police detention. But according to Daniel's friend, there is another detail that makes this situation even more troubling. Daniel was never supposed to be detained in the first place. Daniel's friends later tried to contact his half-brother. He was Daniel's only known living relative. They hoped the family would demand justice for what had happened. But according to the story we received, the brother refused. Daniel had recently sold a large piece of land. The land was reportedly sold for far below its real value. And according to the sender, the buyers were connected to very important people. Daniel's half-brother had also wanted to sell the house Daniel lived in. But Daniel had refused to agree to that. Then something else happened. Just 1 month after Daniel was killed, the house was sold to a large property investor. There is also another mystery. According to the story we received, Daniel had about 75,000 euros from the land sale. The money was believed to be inside his house. But after Daniel's death, the money was never found. In cases like this, you have to follow the money. A land sale for a suspiciously low price to important people, a house sold just a month later, and 75,000 euros gone without a trace. The shadows behind Daniel's death are much darker than they appear. The 2 officers involved in Daniel's death were eventually arrested. But the legal process has been slow. According to the sender of this story, the officers have begun blaming each other. Some believe this may be a tactic to delay the trial and avoid receiving life sentences. For now, the case is still ongoing, and Daniel's friends are still waiting for justice. Daniel Kiskanov wasn't just a name in a police report. He was a brilliant mind, a gold medalist, and a friend whose life was just beginning. I want to say a special thank you to the friend who trusted us enough to share this story. It's not easy to speak up when justice feels out of reach, but your courage keeps Daniel's memory alive. In one night, a borrowed bicycle turned into a death sentence. And while some try to bury the truth under money and power, we choose to remember. What do you think really happened that night? Let's talk in the comments. If you have a story that needs to be heard, send it to SeanVirellTraceYourStory@gmail.com. Your identity is safe with us. Because sometimes the only way to find justice is to tell the story. I'm Sean. Let's trace the truth behind the memory.